Formula One mourns the death of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Tributes have been paid by members of the F1 community, including Formula One President and CEO Stefano Domenicali. He sent his condolences to the royal family and said this: "For more than 7 decades, Her Majesty dedicated her life to public service with dignity and devotion and inspired so many around the world." Queen Elizabeth II was present at the very first Formula One World Championship Grand Prix at Silverstone in 1950. She bestowed knighthoods on 4 Formula One drivers during her 70-year reign, most recently to Sir Lewis Hamilton. Her Majesty also knighted Sir Stirling Moss, Sir Jack Brabham and Sir Jackie Stewart. Formula One sends its deepest condolences to the royal family and to the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth. I bet I can answer the 3-word question in your head right now. Yes, it's Glock. Timo Glock. Maybe you know part of his story, the decisive, rain-soaked final lap of the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix.
You could see literally the rain, how much it was. And I said, guys, I need to come in now. It's impossible. I'm not gonna survive that last lap. It's impossible. Bunch of cars overtaking me. My engineer just told me that Lewis Hamilton is world champion, but he didn't tell me that I decided the championship.
On that dramatic afternoon, Lewis Hamilton beat Felipe Massa to the world title. For Timo, the after effects continue to this day. But there are many more amazing chapters to Timo's tale, like his sudden call-up to Formula One. A whirlwind weekend that began with a bathroom phone call and ended in celebrations with Michael Schumacher. But soon after, he fell out of the sport and totally wrote off his dreams.
I called my dad and I said, man, I'm back on Monday again as a scaffolder. I give up on this. They don't want me in F1. I was 100% sure that's it. That's game over.
An all-or-nothing season changed his life and got him back to Formula One, where his podiums earned the attention of the very top teams.
I was talking to Renault at this stage. They were very interested in signing me next to Robert Kubica. But then I had this phone call from McLaren. They were interested talking to me.
Oh my goodness, what a story Timo Glock has to tell. Welcome to F1 Beyond the Grid with me, Tom Clarkson. From his Formula One debut with Jordan in 2004 to his podiums with Toyota in 2008 and 09, it was clear that Timo Glock belonged at motorsport's pinnacle. But his route there was not straightforward. There were backwards and sideways steps along the way, and there were so many moments where he came agonizingly close to career-changing breakthroughs, race wins or contracts with front-running teams. We talk about all of that, plus how it feels when lawyers decide your Formula One future, chess, and cycling with the Schumachers, and yes, Brazil 2008. How hard that last lap was, his crazy 24 hours after the race, the good and the bad things which followed afterwards, including an unlikely friendship. But we started in the here and now. Timo's a TV pundit for Sky Deutschland, and he'd just come off duty when we sat down to talk. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Timo, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time. You're looking a little bit sweaty on the other side of the table. You've just been playing table tennis against George Russell. Were you victorious?
Unfortunately not. It's the second match I lost this year. And it's something like, we call it Stop the Clock. And we did it last year playing darts against the drivers. And this year it's sort of a mini table tennis. And actually against George, it was a really fun game because it had to go over the whole long distance, let's say, 3 sets, play up to 7. I won the first, he won the second, and then we had a decider. And the funny thing was he had to go into a meeting, and the engineers were already up and saying, George, we have the meeting. And he said, no, we need to play this. We need to finish this game. So, and he had really fun. And this is part of the whole stop the clock thing. We want to do interviews in a different way, not being... let's say in that normal interview session they have to do every day, every weekend. We want to try to get them a bit out of the normal stuff, talking to them in a different environment, and you really feel and you realize they really enjoy this because it's different. I still ask them questions, sometimes a bit different, but the funny thing is the competitiveness of everyone is even on a little table tennis thing, which is actually only fun, is still there, and it's good fun to do it, to see the guys smiling, having fun on it,
and this is for
really
Sky Germany, isn't it?
That's Sky Germany, exactly. Yeah.
I must just ask you about the darts.
Yeah.
Which of the current grid were good at darts? Can I have a guess? I think it's got to be a Brit, so one of the Brits.
No, actually, it was pretty much average. Everyone, they were not really into darts. I'm a really big darts fan, playing a lot of darts at home.
Did anyone beat you at darts?
Yeah, just on the last race I was attending to last year, Yuki Tsunoda.
Yuki beat you at darts?
Yuki beat me, but honestly, by just pure luck. I mean, he was like throwing the darts in the first game. I think he even did not sometimes hit the dartboard. It was quite funny to watch. And then suddenly he hit 3 darts and scored 18, I think, in another 25, like a single bull. And I was like, how is this possible? and I just lost out by 2 points, I think. So,
oh my goodness!
But it was fun, you know. It's really cool to see the guys coming to it and looking at it and saying, what are we doing here now? I mean, what is this? This is a different kind of interview.
Is there a direct correlation between the good table tennis players and the fastest drivers? That sort of hand-eye coordination, the competitive nature?
No, not really. I mean, if you look, I think George was pretty much one of the top 3 worst guys last year. He was like just hitting, I don't know. I mean, 15.
But that's darts. What about table tennis though?
But table tennis, he was the Mr. Consistent. I mean, he said he never played on a small table. He was only on the normal size table tennis, but not much. And when we start playing, I was like pretty sure, okay, I got to beat him easy because, you know, the balls were too long and he didn't have the feeling for it. And then suddenly he switched on. When it was about points, he was like, boom, was right there. And it just, I mean, we had one rally, I think above 30 shots. And he was just playing, getting the balls back, not doing many mistakes.
I'm guessing the questions from you dried up at that point, right? You were concentrating on the game.
Every time when we start playing for points, every driver says, no, I don't want to answer any questions anymore. I need to concentrate on playing.
It's an interesting thing, you interviewing all the young drivers. Do you think Formula One has a lot of talent, a lot of strength in depth on the grid at the minute? You know, you think of Max, you think of Charles, you think of Lando, you think of George. Do you think this is a golden era for driving talent? And that's the young guys. Of course, you've still got Lewis and Fernando as well.
The talents we have on the grid, I mean, looking back to Charles, looking back on George's history, how they went through the junior categories, dominating as well. Max coming into Formula One, it feels like he's turning Formula One upside down at the moment, you know? I mean, the way how he dominates, how he grew up being so competitive against Lewis being the older guy, as well as Alonso being so experienced, still having the hunger and being so motivated to beat the young guys. It's just really interesting to see. As well asking, you know, I mean, I was asking George, what is the difference when you come from a small team like Williams being at the back of the grid to a top team like Mercedes against the big man Lewis Hamilton? What is he doing different? And it was interesting to hear what he was saying, like, you know, the way how he is going into a weekend super focused, being so precise, understanding the racing, the strategies, how he has to handle his tires and so on. Very interesting to see what, you know, the young guys, when they come up next to the big hero Lewis Hamilton, how they learn from them and how they very quickly understand what to do and adapt to it and learn from them and take it on board and do it themselves.
And of course, we've got a future talent in Oscar Piastri coming next year with McLaren. Do you rate Oscar from everything you've seen so far?
I mean, he's pretty much on the same route like George and Charles Leclerc. You know, I mean, he dominated and won the championships in all the lower categories. And I think there is no question about his speed. I think the difference when you come into Formula One is to deal with the pressure you have in Formula One, the amount of work, the amount of hours you need to put in. I think this makes the difference. And I mean, that's what we need to see at some point. I mean, if I remember back to my first Formula One year, I mean, after 5-6 races, I felt like I was exhausted already because everything was new to me and it took so much energy of me and I spent my energy the wrong way, let's say. Until I came into the Sunday race, I was already done because everything in the media I wanted to be good. I wanted to know everything about in the meetings, what's going on, try to understand everything, staying fit, training, workout, And I think this is the big problem for someone who comes new into Formula One. That was at least for me like this, but I mean, in the new era, I mean, the young guys, they are so well treated by the teams already. You know, they come into Formula One and they know what to do because they get taught by the teams already up front. I came into Formula One, you know, coming from Champ Car, coming from GP2. I had no support from any big team or anything, or a young driver program. So I had to learn all myself.
Timo, we're going to come on to that. But just on the topic of Oscar Piastri, I wonder how exhausting and how stressful the last few weeks have been for him because of the contract recognition board. You know, he was waiting on their decision to know whether he was going to be an Alpine driver or a Williams driver indeed, or actually a McLaren driver, which is where he's going to end up in 2023. And you had something similar with Toyota and BMW ahead of the 2008 season. Tell us what that experience was like for you. How complicated did it get? How stressful was it?
I think it wasn't that complicated like it was for Oscar Piastri, because for us it was pretty clear and pretty quickly done on that day when we had to go to Geneva. There was an option from BMW, and if they didn't take it, and if I had an offer from a team for a race seat, I'm free to go. So I had the offer from Toyota, and then BMW turned up and said, but you know, we draw the option, let's say, or we take the option of you, and we want to have you on board next year as a test driver. But we said, but in the contract it's pretty clear, if I have an offer from a race seat for a race seat in 2008, I'm free to go. So this whole scenario came up, and we had to go at the end to the CRB, and we were sitting in front of the lawyers, and they were like, it was done after 15 minutes. Because, I mean, at the end they said, why are we here? Because the decision is pretty clear.
It was that straightforward. And were you that confident?
This is the point. I mean, you know, I mean, my lawyer was confident, my manager was confident, but for yourself, you think, you know, not reading the contract maybe right. And of course, at the end, you need to wait until the decision is done and it's official. And that, of course, is stressful. I mean, if you have to go to Geneva, I mean, we were sitting there with my lawyers, with my manager. Even John Howard came up from Toyota, and the other side, it was only Monisha Kaltenborn, who was at that time lawyer of BMW Sauber. And it was an awkward situation, weird, strange. And I walked out.
Did you feel you had split loyalties in the way that Oscar, you know, has been helped by Alpine on the way up, but actually he's seen an opportunity at McLaren, and for you, BMW had helped you, you'd tested for them, and you'd won Formula BMW, and there was an opportunity at Toyota. Did you have split loyalties at all?
No, because the let's say the contract was clear, and they could not offer me a race seat for 2008, and it was clearly written in the contract that I'm free to go, so I had no bad feelings about it.
Here's a call out for all of you entrepreneurs out there. If you've got big plans for your business or a blossoming side hustle that you want to take to the next level, Shopify are on hand to give you the tools to help make it a reality. Shopify is the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Have you ever heard of Gymshark, Huel, or Tropic Skincare? They're all businesses that have found success using Shopify. And it can work for you too, because Shopify makes it simple for anyone to sell anywhere. From in-person point of sale to online through your website and social media channels like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. In just a few simple steps, Shopify can help you tailor your online store to create the look that you want for your brand. And you don't even need any skills in design or coding. And when it comes to marketing your business, they've got that covered too, because their inbuilt tools can help you create, execute, and analyze your online marketing campaigns, maximizing the reach of your store and unlocking your selling potential in the process. And thanks to their 24/7 support, you can count on help every step of the way. Every minute of every day, a new seller makes their first sale with Shopify, and you can join them. Start selling today with Shopify for free. This is Possibility powered by Shopify. So sign up for a free 14-day trial at shopify.co.uk/grid, all lowercase. Go to shopify.co.uk/grid right now to grow your business today. Shopify.co.uk/grid. Well, look, let's wind the clock back now to the start of your Formula One career. You arrived in the sport at the height of Schumacher-mania. Did that make it easier for a young German driver coming through? Were there lots of German companies wanting to support you get involved?
I mean, for sure, the hype about Michael, about Formula One in Germany helped definitely in that generation, my generation, to find support, to find sponsors who get you through the whatever Formula 3 GP2 at that time, which cost a lot of money. Definitely was a help for me. And I mean, when I grew up, I was watching him when he just started Formula One, and I never thought I have any chance to get to Formula One. I mean, this was so far away from me. I was watching it, and I raced dirt bikes at the beginning, then whatever. I started very late with go-karts when I was 14, and I thought, oh, that's fun, and I went to F3, but even in F3, I never thought I was going to make it to F1 because it seemed to be so far away.
Even when you were winning races in Formula 3?
Yes. It felt being so far away, and then it clicked at some point, I mean, from 2003, I did Formula 3, and in 2004, I was test driver in Formula 1 with Jordan. And that was a really weird feeling and unreal to be on a racetrack driving together with the big name, Michael Schumacher.
Where did your passion for racing come from?
Actually, my dad was doing dirt bikes. He was driving go-karts, but just for fun. He never had the support from his parents to do anything in motorsport. And he's just said, I mean, whatever sport my kids are good in and they want to do it, let's say, professional, I'm going to try to support them as much as possible. And that's the way how I came into racing. I mean, I started with 5 on a dirt bike, broke my leg when I was 8, I think. And then I was out for 4 or 5 years. And then I came back to go-kart racing through a friend who bought a go-kart. And he said, hey, you want to join us? Come with us to the go-kart track, you can have a go in it. So I drove the first time in a go-kart, was straight away quicker than him, came back to home, said to my dad, man, we need a go-kart, we need to start this. And this is how it happened again. Yeah. Being lucky in various points in that time. Yeah.
Well, look, how much luck was there involved in the step up to Formula One? As you say, you win races in Formula 3 in 2003, and suddenly you're Jordan's test driver in 2004, and then before you know it, you're actually racing for them.
I mean, I was driving go-karts for fun. Then at one race weekend where I did my ever first race, there was Adolf Neubert is his name. He supported Michael in his go-kart time. He was at the racetrack watching me, and my engine blew up, and I had only one engine, leading the race by 4 seconds. So we went to him and said, maybe you have another spare engine for us. He said, no, but just come to the company next week. We have a talk. So I come to the company with my dad. He says, I watched Timo. I think he has some talent. I want to support him in the next year. So we never had the financial possibility to do proper go-karting, like European Championship or anything like this. So he supported us, was successful in go-karting. And then this Formula BMW Junior Cup came up where we got support from BMW and ADAC in Germany. So we signed up for this, trying to get support. And my dad has a scaffolding company.
I read this, and he made you work.
Exactly, yeah. I had to work until I was in F3. When I came back on Sunday night from an F3 race, on Monday I had to show up in the company and had to work, which kept me on the ground, which was good. And with the scaffolding company, we worked at Pirelli in Germany. So there, through that, we knew the sporting director of Pirelli Germany. And he made us a contract to my manager at that time, Hans-Bernd Kamps, who supported me then through my Formula BMW career, F3 into Formula 1. And he had a link to Deutsche Post. Deutsche Post was sponsor at Jordan. So this was the whole link up to get through and get the support up to Formula 1.
And of course, in 2004, one of the things that was going on up and down the grid were these Friday practice sessions. Third car, BAR, McLaren, Jaguar, Jordan, all fielded these cars. And I felt it almost was like a qualifying session among you third drivers, everyone wanting to have the bragging rights. Anthony Davidson,
exactly.
Alex Wurz, you. Yeah. I mean, how much help did those sessions give you in preparing you for Formula One and for the debut that came in Montreal later in the year?
I mean, of course, it was definitely helping me a lot. First of all, learning the tracks, learning to work with the team, driving the cars in various configurations, high fuel, low fuel, qualifying mode, and so on and so on. So that was definitely a very good tool and help for young drivers coming in, showing their talent. Is it still possible in these days? I don't know. I mean, now you have simulators which are as good as the real world nearly, where you can show
but it's not
pace,
the same,
but it's not the same, of course. That's the point. I mean, it's a different scenario if you're in a real car on a real track. At a race weekend is a totally different scenario. So, of course, for the young guys, it would be good to do some laps on a race weekend right next to the big guys, to the big names.
So Montreal, you end up replacing Giorgio Pantano.
My hero, by the way, in go-kart times.
He was so quick.
He was unbelievable. Absolute hero for me.
But what happened?
Yeah, I mean, I just got this the call on Saturday morning, standing in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, and I look on my cell phone, and it's Eddie Jordan calling me, and typical Eddie said, "Come to the track, you need to race." What do you mean I need to race? You're going to replace Giorgio, you're going to drive this weekend. I cannot really remember what happened on that day because everything went so quickly. I just tried to do as good as possible. At the end, the next thing I know is I finished P11, then 4 cars got disqualified, if I remember right.
Yeah, the 2 Williamses, the 2 Toyotas. Brakes, yep.
And then the next thing is Eddie taking me out for dinner and being the happiest man because we scored 2 points, which means for the team a lot of money at the end. And he was the happiest man. And another highlight was standing next to Norbert Haug from Mercedes at that time, and Michael and his wife Corinna having a drink somewhere in Canada, in Montreal, after the Grand Prix on Sunday, which was just a unreal weekend for me. Yeah?
I mean, you're a driver who's scored podiums in Formula One, but I'm just looking at you retelling that story and the smile on your face. It's
because it
of
was
all
just
the races you've done in your career, that one
for sure is one of the highlights, but there are other races as well. I mean, the podiums in Budapest 2008 was very special, coming from a bad weekend in Hockenheim where I crashed 1 week before really heavily, being a night in hospital, and then being the next weekend on the podium was pretty much special as well. But of course, I mean, this, that story about Montreal, the first Grand Prix, was just outstanding. I mean, the whole year was anyway good fun with Eddie Jordan. I mean, you know him; he's a character. He's a really good guy, and
is he good with drivers?
Yeah, I mean, he tells you the truth. I mean, if you really do a mistake, he kicks your ass big time. He has no problem with that. He's straightforward. How
did the other drivers greet you when you made your debut in Canada? I mean, you say you hung out with Michael Schumacher afterwards. Was he helpful in any way?
No, I mean, they were just coming up and said, "Man, enjoy your race, enjoy your first Grand Prix, and take it easy," and so on. But there was not much time, I was like just running around, trying to understand what I have to do, trying to understand any strategy.
So, Timo, you have that phenomenal debut, points on your debut, and then at the end of the year, the F1 opportunities dry up. Tell us about the disappointment of not landing a race seat in 2005.
Yeah, that was the very first time where I was involved in those political games. The very first time. I mean, Eddie showed up in China, where there was a talks about another driver who could take over, and then it was like, yeah, if you bring me more money, let's say, you can have the seat and so on. So there was some political games going on. Then the team got sold, turning from 2004 to 2005 to Midland. So the owners had different views and wanted to have different drivers with financial background, and that's what I didn't have. So I had to go a different route through America, doing champ cars, which was another great year for me. But it was hard to accept that it's not the talent, it's more the money.
And that was the first realization for you.
Really being in.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew before that's part of Formula One, but being right in the middle of the game like this is a different scenario. And then it's not only talent, it's political stuff and financial background you need to have at some point.
So, why Champ Car? I mean, and for listeners who aren't aware, Champ Car was an American open wheel racing series that raced on ovals and conventional racetracks. But I mean, why not GP2? There were other steps you could have taken within Europe.
I mean, my manager at that time, GP2 was just coming in as a new championship in 2005, and we were just unsure about it. And it was, from my personally, the next step. I think my manager just threw me into America, said, here's the ticket, go, enjoy your time, learn about racing. And that's what I did over there. This was proper open wheel-to-wheel racing.
And how different were the cars to drive compared to Formula One?
Completely different. No power steering or no proper power steering. 7-speed gearbox, sequential, so nothing, no pedals on the steering wheel. Street tracks like Long Beach, Mexico City, driving to the baseball stadium, different what it's now, slightly different.
Did you like the vibe, the whole American racing scene?
Yes, totally. I really loved it. It was just totally different to Formula One, very open, very easy, pure racing. What I missed in the year 2004, or which I realized again in 2005, that's really what I love, being on a racetrack, spending time with the mechanics, open tent, the fans can walk in, whatever. It was just open, very, very easy, very good. And as soon as the helmet was on, the racing was just super hard, super aggressive. I mean, against Paul Tracy, guys like this.
He's a hard guy.
He was just, at one test, I was like super quick in the test, being every time when I was on track in the top 3, being quicker than him. And this was in Fontana, where the super speedway is, and there's like an infield road course. And we had like a double chicane where they stacked up tires to mark, let's say, the chicane. And I go out in the evening on new tires. Paul Tracy goes out, parks the car right in the middle of the chicane. And my first lap when I came around, I said, okay, maybe he spun, whatever. I had to abort my lap, take a gap to him. Next lap, I come to the chicane again. He parks the car again there. I said, what the hell is going on? So he just played the game because he knew I was quick and he didn't want me to be on top of the timesheets. He just screwed my last run on new tires, just stopping every time in the chicane until lap 6 or 7 when my tires were off.
Did you say anything?
No, he just ignored me. He did not even talk to me. He did not even look at me. Then we come to the race in Monterey, second race, quite similar in qualifying. He blocked me again, drove me off the track, stuff like this. And at some point, we were on the in-lap to after qualifying. I launched my car into him, next to him, broke his side pod. Everything was damaged. I think my front suspension was even damaged. I come back to the pit and I was sure he's coming to my car and he's gonna hit me proper. And he turns up and says, man, this is really what I like. That was proper. And that was the first time he talked to me. Like, that was proper. That's what I like. And walked off.
What a great story.
Yeah, it's just a good guy, a good fun guy.
You do that year in America. In fact, you finish on the podium in Montreal. Second year in a row. You've had a great race at the circuit Gilles Villeneuve. But why not then make a career in America? You clearly made an impact over there. People respected you. They knew you were quick. Why the move back to Europe?
In these days, Champ Car or IndyCar was split in 2 series. It was the Indy Racing League, IRL, and Champ Car. And Champ Car at that time just was financially not in the best situations. The teams had struggled. And it started again, you needed to have proper budget to get into a team. Even the top teams struggled to have budget, to have funding from sponsors. And IRL, let's say, was the better championship. And then we realized that GP2 is the way to go to come. My goal was at that stage was then, of course, Formula One.
That didn't change even when you were in America, right?
That didn't change, yeah. So we decided to come back to Europe, try to do GP2 and make the step into Formula One.
And my goodness, did it work?
It did, but I was very close to stop again my career in 2006 in Monaco because I was driving for BCN the first half of the season and the car was just so bad. We were just off, I would say, between a half a second and a second all the time. We were like, I had no chance. The car was just, sometimes I was driving out, the steering wheel was not straight. I had to do a whole race weekend in Imola where the steering wheel was left-hand side down. They could not fix it. I have no idea why they couldn't fix that. And I came to Monaco and I said, okay, this could be the last chance to show as a driver, to make a difference as a driver. So qualifying finished P17, far off, starting the race. And by luck, we came through with a safety car scenario, whatever it was. We were P4. And then 3 laps before the end, the gearbox blew up and I finished the race right in front of the tunnel, walked back. And I called my dad and I said, man, I'm back on Monday again. as a scaffolder, I give up on this. They don't want me in F1. I was 100% sure that's it. That's game over. Because that was my hope. Monaco, you can make a difference as a driver. But if the car is that far off, impossible. But that was the lucky part. We were talking to iSport before the season started, but we were like 2 weeks too late. They signed up Ernesto Viso and Tristan Gomendi. But we were still in contact with Paul Jackson and the whole team. And both cars were out in lap 1. So he had nothing to do then stopping lap times on the swimming pool area. So he took the section swimming pool to Raskas, and he was stopping every driver, taking the times, and I was the only guy who was as close as possible to Lewis, only 200s off. And his driver, Tristan Gomendi, had financial problems, and he was out of the race, or out of the season after Monaco. So I flew back on Monday, already in my mind, giving up on this, doing something else. Paul Jackson calls up and says, listen, you want to drive for me next race weekend, or the next race in Silverstone? And I say, what the hell? He's going, of course I would. So we're talking to my manager, they get in contact, find an agreement. I turn up in Silverstone. We go out having a chat with the guys. I never met them before, proper. Richard Selvin was my engineer, Oliver Gavin, the other one from the other car. And then I was talking to them, and I explained them how my car was reacting on the race weekend in Monaco and so on, and never had a straight steering wheel. They were looking at me and said, what the hell? And just by talking to them, I had so much confidence in this team that I walked out on Thursday from that restaurant, and I called my manager and said, man, I promise you that's the turnaround. We're gonna be on the podium tomorrow or in the top 5 for sure. He said, yeah, but you never drove the car. I said, honestly, the way how their logic is about racing, it must work. There is no excuse. It must work. I drive out of the pit lane. I turn in to the S's. And on the way down to Kops on the Hangar Straight, I'm on the radar saying, man, this car is unreal. And I was on cold tires. I had zero grip, but I could feel already how good this car is, how good the setup is, how good they understand this car. And what did we do? We finished on the podium.
Finished second.
Finished second. On race 2, I had to start from the back, spun once, and still managed to be in the top 5, I think. And in the second half of the season, scored more points than Lewis. Straight away, the next race in Magny-Cours, we won.
It was an extraordinary turnaround for you.
Yeah.
Now, comparing cars, also in 2006, you tested for BMW Sauber in Spain twice. How did that car compare to the Jordan of 2004? Was it night and day?
Oh, yeah. Totally different. Much more, or much easier to drive. Very easy to understand. I mean, the 2004 Jordan was just aerodynamically just very inconsistent. You never knew what's going to happen in the next corner, let's say. And that car was super stable, super easy to drive. All the systems, everything was just the way, how the engineers were working with you was just different. I mean, of course, with more experience, things get easier, but you straight away could feel the potential of the car. Yeah.
And then you signed to be the BMW Sauber test driver for 2007. You're staying with iSport. And so suddenly, less than a year after you thought it was all over at Monaco, it's massively back on. And could you feel the Formula One dream? Just, you could almost touch it again. Yeah,
I mean, 2007, definitely. I mean, when we were like leading in Monaco, I think in Monaco we were leading by 30 points already in front of Lucas Di Grassi. And I remember, I mean, still people were already, or journalists were already saying, yeah, man, you're through, you won this championship already. I said, never, no way. I mean, it's a long way to go. And then, of course, the first talks started very early to Toyota. And then the pressure came, because they want, you need to win this championship. I mean, without that, there is no chance for a race seat. And of course, the pressure was then on. And suddenly, my luck started to disappear. I remember this awkward situation when I drove up in Spa in the morning. It was very cold, and we had no tire warmer. So you just drive carefully into the starting grid. On the way to the grid, and then I try to warm up my tires, and I look in the mirror, and then I see this car coming sideways, turning to the left, spinning in front of me, and like in slow motion, runs into my car, damaged my front suspension. I parked the car at the Camel Straight, not even making it to the grid. And I was sitting there for 5 minutes and I said to my engineer, I'm out. What do you mean you're out? I said, I am out. This idiot drove into, I don't know who it was, he drove into my car. My front suspension is damaged. It's game over. So I come to the last race in Valencia 2 points ahead of Lucas Di Grassi, having like alternator problems in Budapest, leading the race and stuff like this. So and I was like, and then the pressure comes.
Your future quite literally depended on that one race weekend.
I mean, maybe that was only the pressure from Toyota trying to build up and see how I handle the pressure. I don't know. But they said every time, you need to win the championship. Otherwise, there's no possibility for you next year. So, and then at the end, I won it in Valencia in the last race.
And of course, you then go to the CLB, you get the drive with Toyota, 2008, 2009, although it was a 3-year deal originally, is that right?
2 years and 1 year, let's say another option, yeah.
What did Toyota get right and what did they get wrong about Formula One?
I think, the decisions took just too long. There was no clear, let's say, captain steering the ship, taking decisions. They had to be covered by Japan. We had solutions for the car. I remember that rear wing in 2008 where there was this gray area where you could fill in this letterbox, they call it, on the rear wings, like a slot. And we had like a really clever idea. And in the wind tunnel, it looked really promising. We did straight line tests. It was super efficient, ready to go for racing. And then suddenly Japan pulled the plug because they said, it's too much of a gray area. We don't want to be disqualified like they were in the rally times once where they sort of cheated. They never wanted to get into that situation again. So Japan pulled the plug. The thing was ready to go racing. And at the end, we couldn't do it. And it would have, these little things, they happened a couple of times.
Frustrating for you. What did they get right?
The possibilities we had at Cologne in the company, they were insane.
As in the facilities?
Facilities were...
Budget.
Yes, facilities, budget. There was no excuse. Everything was there to win multiple world championships.
And do you think if they'd stayed... everyone says the 2009 car was a very good car.
The 2010 was the car to fight for, definitely for the top three. I know guys who went from Toyota to Ferrari when Toyota pulled the plug, and the aero data they knew from Toyota at that time, they were definitely quite a step ahead of Ferrari. And they made a big step on the engine because the engine definitely was a limiting factor when they came from the V10 to the V8. I think the best example was Monza here in 2009. The 4 Toyota cars were in the last 2 rows. Made a big improvement for 2010, and this was all adding up for having a good chance and a good car. Unfortunately, it didn't happen.
Now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. We talk a lot about mindset on this show, the challenges faced both on and off the track by our guests. When you're faced with a challenge in life, sometimes it can be difficult to get your brain into problem-solving mode. And if you're taking a series of knocks, it can be easy to find yourself focusing more on the problems than searching for the solutions. I believe that the best way to tackle a problem is to talk through it, and that's where a therapist can help. No matter what's troubling you, having someone to listen and help you shift your mindset can be a huge step towards finding a solution. It can help you understand the emotions you're experiencing, gain perspective, and find the confidence to step out of your comfort zone so you can become the best version of yourself. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, but don't know where to start, BetterHelp is a great option. It exists entirely online, meaning it's convenient, accessible, and more affordable than in-person therapy, and it's simple to use. All you need to do is visit the website, complete a brief survey, and you'll be matched with a therapist in no time. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/grid today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/grid.
This extraordinary Hungaroring circuit delivers up its 7th different winner in 7 years. Heikki Kovalainen wins the Hungarian Grand Prix, his first ever Grand Prix victory. I'm sure there'll be plenty more, but what an extraordinary Grand Prix. With Felipe Massa retiring 3 laps from the end. Timo Glock, a heroic second place. Timo Glock punching well and truly above his weight in the Toyota.
Timo, you got your first podium in Hungary 2008 after such a tough journey to the top. How did that moment feel?
That felt like suddenly being 50 kilos lighter. Coming from Hockenheim, the race, there was just 1 week between the two races. I had a big accident in the last corner where the suspension broke. Spent one night in the hospital and just came to Budapest. And somehow, I don't know, I mean, the track just suited our car. There was nothing about top speed. It was all about downforce. And the 2008 Toyota had proper downforce, I would say. And from lap 1 on, I knew that's going to be a chance to be in the top 5 here. The car was just really good. I really liked the circuit. I just had the flow from lap 1 on. It felt like I think I was in every session quicker than Jarno Trulli. And I just realized, man, this is a good chance to score some proper points. But it was just nice, really good feeling. But as well, like, you know, everything happened so quickly after the race. You could not really enjoy because, I mean, the first time on the podium, the mechanics went mad. But it was just good feeling, very good feeling.
And what did it mean to Toyota?
I mean, of course, there was definitely a breakthrough, let's say, for me, as well for them, you know, confirmation we picked the right guy, let's say. Because at the beginning of the season, I really struggled to keep up with Jarno, especially in qualifying, because he's just a pure qualifier and one of the best qualifiers I ever had to fight against. And then I just realized race by race, understood more what I have to do over a race weekend, how to treat the car, how to work with my mechanics, with my engineers. And then it added up and got better and better through the year.
Decent party on the Sunday night. You know, you finished 7th for Jordan in Montreal 2004, and you go out to dinner with EJ. What happened after that podium?
Not such a big party because I was just pretty exhausted after having the crash in Hockenheim and the whole stress, let's say, over that weekend and the emotions, everything. I just enjoyed a good dinner, had a few drinks, but then went back to the hotel.
Now, 2008 World Championship goes down to the wire.
3 to go in what has been a truly dramatic World Championship. It's now raining hard, and that means Glock is going to be in trouble. He's in 4th place, and with just 2 laps to go, the question now is, can Timo Glock in the Toyota keep it on the island? If he cannot, then Hamilton might have a chance of getting the title back. At the moment, 6th will not do it for him. And only 1 lap remains. Glock's sector times are perfectly healthy on the dry tyre. He's doing fine, and the championship is slipping away from Lewis Hamilton.
You played an innocent part in what happened there between Lewis Hamilton and Felipe Massa. How do you reflect on everything associated to that race now, both on track and off track?
I mean, on track, I just try to do my job as good as possible. But I remember really clearly the last 3 to 4 laps, because to me it was clear in what direction it's going to go. I mean, it was not clear to me that I'm going to decide a championship. But the way, I mean, we were like P7 and P9, I think. And then we decided, I mean, this cloud came over the track. And I said, like 3 laps towards the end, I said, guys, I think it's going to end up in a disaster because this cloud will arrive 2 or 1 lap towards the end. And if it's raining, it's going to be chaotic. And they said, yeah, the first guys are changing to intermediate tires. We're going to take the risk and we stay out. We have nothing to lose. Second to last lap, it starts already raining in the last corner. And I said, guys, I need to come in because you could see literally the rain, how much it was. Just 200 meters away, moving very quickly to the track. And I said, guys, I need to come in now. It's impossible. I'm not going to survive that last lap. It's impossible. Tires cooling out already, the groove tires. And they said, you cannot come in. It's impossible because the gates were already built up for the podium ceremony. And there were people already freaking out because Massa at that time was world champion. They said, you need to stay out. You cannot come in. So I had to stay out, come to the first corner, already wet, being nowhere, just trying to survive.
You're P4 at that point.
P4 at that point. Yeah, I mean, I never had the information in what scenario I'm in and what's going to happen in the last lap, if they're going to catch me or not. I just tried to survive. And then, a bunch of cars overtaking me. Kubica, who was a lap down. Vettel overtakes me. Hamilton overtakes me. And I finished P6.
It's all about these last few corners now. We're expecting Massa anytime now. He comes through to claim his 6th victory of the season. He has done everything he needed to do, and we wait now to find out who will be the world champion of 2008. Can Hamilton do anything? Only a few corners to go now, and desperation starts to creep in for Lewis Hamilton.
Raikkonen's third, and is that Glock? Is that Glock going slowly?
It is,
That's
it's Glock. Oh my goodness me, Hamilton's back in position again. 5th place, which is all he needs to do to become the 2008 Formula One World Champion, Lewis Hamilton.
Glock's last lap, a 1:44.7. Either he just fell off the cliff with grip from those dry tyres, just a bit too much rain, and Glock lost 18 seconds on the last lap.
Lewis Hamilton is the world champion.
Unbelievable.
How difficult was it to keep the car on the track on that last lap?
If you watch the onboard, which
You're rally driving.
yeah, it was just trying to survive. I mean, very slippery with these groove tires. As soon they cooled out, they had no grip, zero grip. So like the summer tires on snow, let's say, on ice. Funny enough, my engineer just told me that Lewis Hamilton is world champion, but he didn't tell me that I decided the championship. So I come back.
I think you're being unfair on yourself to say you decided the championship.
yeah,
You've got Singapore when
course.
Ferrari had the refueling problem. You've got
true.
Hungary that we've already talked about. World championships are not won and lost in one race.
But let's say in that situation,
you tell the fans that.
So I came back to the pit. So we stopped before the uphill section to the pit lane. And funny enough, Lewis Hamilton stops in front of me. So what I do, I go there, give him a handshake and say, "Well done, man. Congratulations to your world championship." In front of, I don't know how many thousand Brazilian spectators. Then I walk up to the scales and this whole bunch of journalists and photographers runs down. So I go to the side because, of course, they want to go to Lewis Hamilton world champion. But they all come to me and ask me these questions like, was this on purpose? Did you help Lewis? Why did you help Lewis? You decided the championship. And I was like, what the hell? What's going on here? And then my physiotherapist comes to me and takes me, runs up with me to the scales. I go to the scales, runs back to me to the hospitality, locks me in the room and tells me what happened. So then I understood what's going on. And I still remember my mechanics got thrown from the paddock club. People were throwing stuff down to everyone who had a Toyota shirt on. I got police escort from the track to the hotel, from the hotel the next morning to the plane, to the airport, into the plane. They walked with me into the plane. Completely.
What about when you were at the track? Did you get...
I just switched to different clothes and I just went back to the hotel as soon as possible.
Did you speak to Massa that night, Sunday night?
Not for 10 years.
You didn't speak to Felipe for 10 years?
Not for 10 years.
Why? Just...
I don't know. I thought if I talk to him, he will kill me. I don't know. I mean, funny enough, this is a funny story. Last year, in Mexico, I'm at the, from Sky, on the Sky Pad, we call it, showing an onboard lap, and then Felipe Massa walks by and waves to me. And I look at him and I was like turning around, does he mean someone else? Is he wave to me? So he waved to me and I waved back and I was like, okay. So then we were doing the onboard and my cameraman, Toby, you should ask him for an interview. And I said, yeah, of course I asked him for an interview. For sure not. Then I walked back and I said, okay, next week is the Brazilian GP. Why should we not do an interview with Felipe Massa in Brazil about that championship deciding moment? So I sent Ruins Barrichello a message. Could you give me the phone number from Felipe? And do you think he would talk to me? He said, of course he would talk to you. Why not? I said, because of 2008. No, easy. So I sent him a text. Felipe replies, super friendly. Hey, mate, no problem. Of course we can do an interview. That's good. That's a really good idea. Let's talk about that. And then I walk into the TV compound. Martin Brundle comes up and I say, he's the right guy to do the interview. The famous words, is that Glock? So I asked him, would you be up for an interview? And he interviewed us in Brazil, which was super emotional from both sides. And Felipe never saw this onboard camera from me in that last lap. The first time last year in Brazil. So, and then he really understood in what position I was in. And from that moment on, it was just a really cool relationship. The next race, we saw each other again, comes up and invites me for the stock car race in Brazil. with him together because they have this
Teammates?
Yes. So they have in the Stock Car Championship, the first race, they share one car with a driver they invite, let's say a European driver, whoever. So he asked me and I said, man, if I have no commitments with BMW, of course, I come over. So I flew over. We did the race together. He qualifies the car, does race one, and I do race two. Unfortunately, in race one, the gearbox failed and I couldn't do race two. But yeah, I mean, since that,
So
we
he's
have
been
really
completely cool with you?
Absolutely. Totally easy.
Do you regret waiting so long to talk to him?
I don't regret it. I mean, of course, I could have talked to him earlier, but the way how it happened, I think the story was even better. And then he invited me to his house. We had dinner with his family. I mean, I still, and I told this to his dad. I said, it's so painful still to see this moment where he was celebrating his son for world champion in Brazil, and then getting told it's not happening. This face, the way how he looked into the camera, I will never forget. And this is what I told him. I said, and I still have goosebumps when I think about it. And it was just a really nice weekend, I have to say. Really enjoyed this. And hopefully we can do it again together. Let's see.
Did I read that you got a lot of abuse letters sent to your house?
That was the case. I mean, really shocking how people can treat you in a way where even my parents were scared. I mean, getting letters back home, fans saying you should be banned from racing. Even people saying the guy should be killed and stuff like this is not nice. And it took long. I mean, very long. And every time when the Brazilian race came up, I mean, my Twitter account exploded. It's still the case sometimes.
Even now?
Yeah, I mean, now it's more the positive, the funny stuff, like the famous words, is that Glock, comes up most of the time. But it changed quite a lot when the onboard came out. I don't know why Formula 1 was waiting 5 years for it, but when that came out, it changed a lot of minds, a lot of people's mind. Yeah.
Timo, what about your mind? How did that whole experience affect you mentally, and did it knock your confidence in the car in any way?
It didn't change my confidence in myself. I just couldn't understand why people thought I would help or I would have made Lewis world champion. I was driving for Toyota. Why should I make Lewis world champion? There was no way that I could have been involved in anything because I just drove my race and I tried to make the best out of it. So it felt I couldn't accept, or I could not understand why people were thinking I did it on purpose. I had no clue where I was in the race.
Have you ever talked to Lewis about that race?
Not really, no. Somehow in the last 2 race weekends when I was at the track, I met him in Spa. I walk in through the gate and I just looked on my phone, and then someone says, "Hey Timo, how are you?" And I was looking left, right, and then it's Lewis. I said, "Hi Lewis." Didn't talk to him since I don't know how many years, let's say. Now I met him when I played against George, having a quick sort of chat. But I don't know. He's in his world when he's on a race weekend, and he feels like he doesn't want to be attacked by someone, let's say, or has a little chat in, and I don't want to disturb him in the way how he approaches his weekend. So I would never go there and would ask him to have a chat with him about 2008 now. If it happens, it happens. If not, it doesn't.
Well, look, let's talk 2009. Let's talk some positives. Your best season in Formula 1. And there's a few races I wanted to ask you about. First of all, Malaysia. Remember that monsoon and the race was stopped after 32 laps. You finished third, another podium. Were they the worst conditions you've ever experienced in a racing car?
Pretty much, yeah. Actually, on track we finished second, but the result was taken the lap before, let's say. And this was actually the weekend or the race where we could have scored the first win for Toyota. Because we came out of the box and I was just right behind Jensen, and I was quicker than him in that monsoon rain. And I was just right on his tail, and then they pulled the red flag out. And I was close. I was confident that I can overtake him. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. So, but funny enough, the whole strategy calls were quite nice, because I did every time the opposite what everyone else did, because you could see that the rain is coming, and if it comes, it would have been a massive monsoon, let's say. But somehow it started drizzling. Everyone went on heavy rain tires, and I went on intermediates. Went through the field. Everyone saw, oh man, this guy is quick. Everyone comes in, changes from heavy rain tires to intermediates. Then the rain comes down. I go in and go to heavy rain tires, and then I was P2.
Ifs, buts, maybes, but had you won that race, how might it have changed things for you? And do you think Toyota would have stayed in Formula One?
Yeah, this is sort of the talk which happened a lot of times. If Toyota would have won the race, maybe they would have stayed in Formula One, but I don't know.
But then another opportunity comes along very soon afterwards in Bahrain. You qualify on the front row. We're going well until I think you put the hard tyre on in the race and fell backwards. But do you see that as another opportunity for a win that slipped away?
Yeah, I mean, in qualifying, we definitely had the pace. Strategy-wise, we had to come in early. I think there was still the case where you had to qualify in Q3 with the fuel load. You start the race. So, and we were just 2-3 laps short, let's say, compared to the other guys. And I had to come in before Jarno had to come in. They put on the hard tire. They realized in my car it didn't work. So I dropped out, and everyone else realized, okay, we're not gonna go on the hard tire because Glock is nowhere. We're gonna change our strategy, and that was the reason why we dropped back. Jarno still had a good chance, I think, to win the race, but at some point we just did not have the pace in the race to beat the other guys. And being short in the first stint on fuel didn't help.
Lewis Hamilton wins for McLaren in Singapore. Timo Glock chases it home in second, equals his best result in Formula One. Seemingly available on the driver's market. How impressive will this be? And how many people will come talking to him about 2010?
Singapore, where you finished second. The opening lap, you overtook Alonso in a very opportunistic move.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. Let me remind you. But I felt, another podium. Did you feel at that point there was some momentum building?
I definitely felt the momentum, but I realized already you could hear the talks that Toyota could step out of Formula One. This was already happening around Singapore. There were the first sort of rumors about it. So it felt great, but in the same time, it felt strange because you knew it's a weird situation, and Toyota could pull the plug at the end of the year.
Did you feel quite insecure about that? In terms of, because of course it's going to massively affect your future.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely one point. But at the same time, I was talking to Renault at this stage. They were very interested in signing me next to Robert Kubica. So in parallel, we were talking to them. That was another awkward situation until Abu Dhabi. Yeah, I mean, for sure, after Singapore, it felt great to be on the podium again. It felt unsecure, knowing the future about Toyota. But on the same, on the other side, I was talking to Renault, and I had quite confident they're going to sign me up for 2010.
And then did your crash at Suzuka affect Renault's interest in you?
No, not at all. I mean, the biggest effect was, we were clear after Japan. We had a meeting in Japan where everything was pretty much done. And, then it's about lawyers, and you need to do the fine-tuning about contracts and stuff like this. But actually, I had a call in Abu Dhabi where I turned up again, watching the race, and actually signing the deal with Renault was the plan. But then I had this phone call from McLaren. They were interested talking to me. And then I had to talk to McLaren with, German manufacturer behind with Mercedes, German driver. That would be really interesting. And I said, I'm very close with Renault. We should, we're signing the deal very soon. And then, there was like sort of this delay where they said, can you delay it maybe 1 or 2 days, and let's have a proper chat about it. So I had a chat with them, managed somehow to postpone the signing with Renault. it was actually that, the plan was that I fly out to England and have a meeting in England at McLaren. For some reason on Tuesday, I never heard about it again anymore about McLaren. Toyota pulling the plug, and then suddenly Renault decided to step out of the Formula One World Championship. So I was standing there with nothing in my hands anymore. So should I have signed? I could have signed on Sunday in Abu Dhabi with Renault. Of course, if they would have and they pulled the plug, the question is if I would have still been in the team with Jenny Capital at the end of where they took over in 2010. I think I would have still have had the contract, a valid one, but you never know. But this was a very difficult situation for me, having a very good contract in your hand, then having a phone call, you postponed it for 2 days, and then suddenly you're there and having nothing, because at the time McLaren signed up with Vodafone as a team sponsor, and they wanted to have 2 British drivers, which was Lewis and Jenson Button. And I was out of the deal.
Out of 2 deals?
Out of 2 deals, yeah.
Were McLaren not even interested in a third driver role, or were you not interested?
There was suddenly no talks anymore. There was suddenly no one answering a phone anymore. So, and then I was just trying to get somehow a deal done. And funny enough, Mark Hines called me, who was long time
working with
Lewis in the past years, called me if I would be interested in this project. And I said, yeah, let me know what it is and let's have a chat.
And what about Mercedes? Because, of course, they buy Brawn at that time. Were there any conversations in that direction?
No.
Or was it was Renault and McLaren?
Yeah.
So, look, Virgin is obviously a much smaller team than Toyota. It's 2010. What were the most obvious differences between the teams trackside?
Trackside, it was just the operation itself, the possibilities at Toyota were like unlimited, and at Virgin everything was limited at the end, because we just didn't have the budget to develop the car race to race. They really had to think about what they do, where they're going to spend the money, how they spend the money, and so on. So it was a totally different scenario and totally different way of working with a Formula One team.
And you needed to be there to keep your name in the game, in the hope that a big team would come and pick you up.
Yeah.
But how difficult was it to go from challenging for wins, scoring podiums, to then suddenly being at the back?
Tough when you realize. For me, it was clear after the first test when I saw the car the first time. It was clear, okay, that's a long way to go. There is only one chance. You try it. You stick with the team. You try to do your best and hope that they're gonna develop the car and you make good progress. But after the first test, it was clear. We were like 5 seconds off the pace. That's not gonna happen. And then I had a bit of, let's say, hope when Pat Simmons joined the team, when it went from Virgin to Russia. I had a bit more, let's say, funding, a bit more money. And Pat Simmons joined, and he was just, a very good guy, trying to get the maximum out of the package we had. And we went in the right directions, but still, financially, we did not have the chance to make the big steps.
But you re-signing with the team on a longer-term deal, did that coincide with the arrival of Pat?
That was one part, and the cooperation with McLaren, where we could use their wind tunnel plus the simulator, was one part to do, let's say, a long-term deal with them. Yeah, I
did enjoy. I think it was 2012. I did enjoy watching you battle with Michael Schumacher at a couple of races. I think it was Korea. Was Korea one of the races? That must have been. Yeah. That must have been a pretty cool moment for you. We've already talked about Schumacher. You watching him when you were a kid, and suddenly you're arguing over the same piece of racetrack.
Absolutely. We had a lot of fun in 2012 on the track, and I spent a lot of time with him. We were going cycling and stuff like this together. He took me a couple of times in his plane, like, for example, Korea, because, if you fly to the normal, let's say, airport, it's another 4.5 hour drive.
I remember.
Exactly. So if you have like sort of a private, with the private
straight
plane,
to Mokpo.
you go right next to the track. Sometimes we had the deal that when the practice is over and you drive back to the track, if you meet each other on track, we're gonna as sideways as possible in the Formula One car, so going out of the corner, being sideways. And this was just pure fun. I was every time when the checkered flag was out, I was asking, where's Michael Schumacher on track? Where's Michael Schumacher on track? And they were asking, why you ask every time? We have a special deal. So this was really fun. I mean, enjoyed that time with him a lot. I learned a lot from him. And
what did you learn from Michael Schumacher?
Just the way how he is. He was straightforward. Very, very straightforward. I mean, we were playing chess a lot of times in the airplane. And I was his physiotherapist, Kai, who is now the physio of Mick. Michael and myself playing each other all the time. So I was playing against Kai, and he made a mistake. I made a mistake before, and I said, sorry, I just went the wrong. Can I move back? And he allowed me to do it with the queen, let's say. So one game later, he does a mistake, and I just say, no, you don't get it back. That was a stupid mistake by fun, because the game was anyway sort of over. On the way back in the airplane, Michael comes to me and says, that was definitely not right what he did yesterday. And I said, what do you mean yesterday? With the chess game. I said, what happened at the chess game? I didn't even know anymore. And he was like, you do a mistake. Kai offers you the chance to take the queen back. He does one game later, he does the mistake. And you don't give him the queen back. That's not right. You should think about that. And I was like, man, this was fun anyway, because the game was done. He lost anyway. There was no chat. He said, I don't care. That was not right. Point taken. I said, all right, okay. Stuff like
the headmaster.
Very competitive. Everything what we did had to be done in a competitive way. We played billiard, we played whatever, and the guy who lost had to do 10 push-ups or 20 push-ups and stuff like that. It was just enjoyable. Nice to see someone like him being a 7-time world champion, still being super competitive in everything what he does.
Who was better on a bike, you or him?
That depended. that was quite different. Sometimes I was stronger than him, and then they had a period where he was driving a lot on the bike, and then he destroyed me, and the other way around. Depended on the schedule, let's say, how many kilometers we could do on the bike.
Do you see a lot of similarities between Mick and Michael?
Yes.
Mannerisms, or just the way they go about? Would Mick pick you up on that chess game?
Yeah, we're playing chess as well. We played a couple of times as well. I was shocked. I still remember that one go-kart race where he asked me to come with him, Mick. He asked me to come to Kristianstad, European Championship. And I never saw him karting before. Drive out of the box, I walk to the grandstand, and then there are like 30 go-karts coming towards me. Instantly I knew where Mick is. I mean, of course I knew the helmet, but the way how he was sitting in that go-kart, if he would have had a red helmet, I would have said this is Michael. You could see the way how he was sitting in the car, how he was moving, how he was handling the go-kart, how he was watching the other guys, how he was going through the field. It was Michael 1-to-1, just in a green helmet or a yellow helmet, let's say.
Do you think Mick's done enough to stay in Formula One next year?
In Zandvoort, that qualifying result was pretty impressive. I think with the pressure he has at the moment, he really delivered it on this weekend. Since he scored his first points, he's delivering, he's showing the pace, he's showing the progress. This is the important thing. He's not, it seems like he's not stopping, there's no standstill. It's every time getting better and better and better. I mean, it's his second year in Formula One. The way how he handles the pressure now, how he step by step is improving, it's impressive to see.
I sometimes think of this as his first year in Formula One, because last year it was so uncompetitive, the car, and he didn't have a great teammate, whereas suddenly he's now got a decent car, a quick teammate, and he's sort of learning things that perhaps he could have learned last year.
Yeah, I mean,
is that fair? Is that a fair statement?
Definitely, it's a different scenario. You learn a lot more if you have a competitive car and you're right in the mix. I mean, if the highlight is you just manage to go to Q2, you don't learn what's proper racing in Formula One. That's what you learn when you fight for points. Having a competitive car like he has now, fighting against Max in Silverstone. These battles make you learn and step by step improving. If you just drive at the back of the grid, you don't learn.
Timo, it's so interesting to get your take. I wish I could speak German, because I'd love to listen to you as a pundit on Sky Germany. How are you finding life as a pundit? Do you get frustrated? Does the racing driver in you still want to be out there on the grid? I know you're still racing in other things, but do you still want to be out there, or can you take a step back? Do you find that quite easy, and do you enjoy giving your opinion?
I really enjoy trying to bring the sport, which I love, across through the TV in a very simple way. I mean, it's a very complicated sport. Trying to get this across to the spectators in a simple way, that's what I like. It's what really a challenge is.
And how are things between you and Ralph? Because Ralph Schumacher,
Yeah.
because
very good.
you replaced Ralph at Toyota, didn't you? And I was wondering whether there was any.
Not once. I mean, we really enjoy working together. I mean, if we spend, normally he's at the races, and then I have a race off. But there are races where we are together.
Do you bounce off each other quite well?
We get on very well. He has a very clear and straightforward opinion as well, and that's what I have as well. But we respect each other. And he's really well known in the paddock.
So when you look back at your own Formula One career, what do you think? How do you reflect on it? Is there anything you might have done differently?
Yeah, I would have signed for Renault earlier. But on the other side, I never look. But there's a reason why it ended like this, or why decisions were made. And I never look back and regret anything or being not happy about it. I enjoyed my time in Formula One. I learned a lot about it, about myself, about the sport, and I just tried to look forward. I just never really looked back. I mean, I made my decisions at that time, and they had a reason.
So when you look forward, do you have any other racing ambitions? You've raced at Bathurst?
Yeah.
Which I imagine was amazing.
Really, really good. A lot of fun.
But what about Le Mans?
Le Mans could be an option. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not with BMW anymore next year. They decided to go a different route. For some reason, I mean, I would have loved to be involved in the LMDH program doing Le Mans at some point. But let's see. I mean, when there is one door closing, there is another one opening. Let's see if there are other options for the future. But definitely Le Mans is still on the list.
You're not close to hanging up your helmet yet?
No, definitely not. No, I'm still enjoying too much when I sit in the car driving those things around a racetrack. What I really would love to do is, and maybe I need to talk to Michael Masi about that, is V8 Supercars in Australia. This is really I would love to do.
What, a season?
I mean, of course,
I mean,
a
a one-off
season
at Bathurst is one thing.
We could do a one-off, but I mean, if they would offer me a whole year, I mean, why not? But that's too far away. I would love to drive it first, see if I'm quick, do a test. Do maybe a one-off race like those enduro races they have, and then see. Yeah, but these cars are really cool to drive, I think.
Timo, it's been really fantastic to have you on the show. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Isn't Timo an interesting guy? He spoke so eloquently about the good and the bad moments of his Formula One career, and his description of the aftermath of Brazil 2008 left me with chills. That he's now friends with Felipe Massa says a lot about him and about Felipe. Timo, many thanks for your time. It was great to catch up, and I look forward to seeing you at a racetrack again soon. Now, as usual, at this point in the show, I'd like to ask you to send in your thoughts and stories about Timo. What are your memories of that infamous race at Interlagos? Do you think Timo deserved a shot in a race-winning car? Let me know, and I'll read out some of your messages at the end of next week's show, which segues beautifully into what you sent in about Jan Lammers after last week's show. Like me, I think many of you were blown away by Jan's honesty and storytelling. Let's start with this from Dan van Zupfen. What an inspiring F1 Beyond the Grid episode with Jan, he says. I've heard about him a lot, but never knew he was so relaxed and honest. He's an amazing person, and I can listen to his stories all day long. Well, exactly that, Dan. I could have listened to him all day long as well. I think he's the sort of guy who'd be interesting on any topic, not just motor racing. Let's go to Roger Timothy next. Love this episode, Tom. Max might get all the attention, but Jan Lammers is possibly the most iconic Dutch motorsport driver for those in the know. Terrific on Dutch podcasts and media, and I'm so happy he could do the same in English. A wonderful and yet passionate, practical man. Practical is a good way to describe him, Roger. He was, and probably still is, one of those people who's very good at finding solutions to any problem. Now finally, let's hear from Nick Adcock. I've had the pleasure of driving in a 24-hour race with Jan, a lovely, lovely man and seriously quick. What a lovely message to end the show with, Nick. Jan is everything you describe, and I'm very jealous that you got to race with him. We'll leave it there for messages, but thank you to everyone who wrote in. I read them all, and please remember to write in about Timo Glock, and I'll read out some of those messages next week. If you enjoyed hearing from Timo, please leave us a rating or a review on your podcast app, or share this episode with your friends and fellow F1 fans. And remember, you can always follow F1 Beyond the Grid for the fastest way to get our new episodes every Wednesday. Thank you so much for listening. F1 Beyond the Grid is produced by F1 and Audioboom Studios.